I honestly don't see how it reverses at this point unless there is some drastic action. I don't see a Trump of Europe. I don't see anyone that can turn it around. And let's remind ourselves that Trump almost didn't make it, and he maybe could have not been elected. And that's a point of potential reversal of that trend, but I don't see it in Western Europe.
So, I mean, I disagree with you, actually, if you don't mind me saying so, Brian. I mean, I think 5 years ago, ideologically, this country was in a much worse place than it is now. You know, the million people or whatever it was, 2.5 million people online, wouldn't have felt able to come out 5 years ago and show their support. The so-called Overton window, the center of gravity of acceptable political discourse, has undoubtedly shifted in favor of the nation state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, borders, policies being made for the nation state, etc., rather than this extreme form of what I call liberal global ideology that seems to have infected our political class. The reason they turn their back on the British people is because actually they do hold the British people in contempt. They think their job should be done on the world stage, governing for the globe. That's why we have so many policies that are so detrimental to the United Kingdom. And because they're governing for the globe, they don't actually recognize our own borders. Starmer can't even bring himself to call those who've entered this country illegal migrants. He calls them irregular migrants because he's completely hijacked by this global order. He's pro-EU. He even said, I think, when he was being interviewed by Emily Maitlis, when she asked him, would you rather be in Davos or Westminster? He said, I'd rather be in Davos. This was a guy who was standing to be Prime Minister of this country. He'd rather be in a foreign place with a whole load of foreign leaders than with his people in the United Kingdom. But I think that's changing, and it's evidenced by the march. It's evidenced by the way Reform UK is doing so well in the polls, and the way Advance UK will do very, very, very well in the polls in the future once we're registered as a political party. So I think we can save the UK. I think the British people want the UK to be saved. They know in their hearts what's required to save it. But you make a very powerful point, Brian, and you said that the steps required are going to be drastic. And the steps required are going to get ever more drastic if the political class don't get a grip of the problem quickly. It's already the 11th hour and 59th minute. It is already very late in the day, but they have to grab it. And if they leave it longer, then the steps become more drastic, more draconian. And what we don't want, what we want to avoid at all possible cost, is a solution that isn't peaceful. We must take the support of the people, give it a voice, and have a peaceable outcome to this for everyone involved.
And that's why you got into politics.
Well, that's not why I got into politics. I've been on a journey, as I mentioned, and I got into politics simply because I thought the political class were lying about leaving the EU. They lied when they said that simply voting to leave the EU would mean we'd have a massive recession, 1 million jobs would be lost, 75,000 jobs would be lost in the city. Mark Carney, who is the hapless governor of the Bank of England, said that there'd be a run on the banks. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember
He said in 2016 there would be a run on the banks if we voted to leave the EU, and therefore he was putting aside £250 billion to save the British banking system. Now, there's nothing more likely to get the British banking system into trouble than the governor of the Bank of England saying it might get into trouble, and therefore I'm putting money aside. He was actually perpetrating Project Fear. And I thought something is wrong with our political class. He shouldn't even be opining in politics.
Correct.
He's the blooming governor of the Bank of England. And that was the beginning of my journey that I've been on. So my first battle was with the EU. And as I engaged with the EU, I realized actually the EU is one manifestation of a global order.
What the London Real Investment Club actually does for you, it gives you the keys to open that door to the inside deals. In the last 3 weeks, I've participated in 3 incredible deals: a layer 2 Bitcoin protocol, an incredible AI protocol. The deal flow is beyond what I expected. I don't think I've ever seen a model like this that just gives average folks the opportunity to be behind the deals. And that's exactly what we've done. Not only that, you get to hang out with Brian Rose every week. And for me, that was huge because because I look at Brian as somebody who's not only an expert in the space, and I think is on the leading edge, but just the leading edge of thought with London Real and the work he's doing there. To anyone who's taking a serious look at this, I know it's a big decision. It was a big decision for me and my family, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I wish you all the best and hope you come join us.
That is seeking to take control of countries, denude them of their domestic democracies. And when you denude a country of its democracy, you denude it of its national identity. If you're not making laws in your own country for your own people, you're no longer a nation state. If you take down borders as they have done in Europe with the Schengen zone, you're no longer a nation state. And then I saw this manifestation actually being applied much more broadly across the globe. Lockdowns were a wake-up call for me. You know, a totalitarian response initiated in China was adopted wholesale across the West. In the late 60s, we had a virulent form of flu, and there was no lockdown. People just had to ride the wave. We all know that viruses evolve to settle down and become endemic, as opposed to in a form of extreme epidemic. We had an epidemic which would have become benign and endemic, and we had to get through that. But we had this top-down control of the British people. And then we had vaccinations, and vaccinations are great if they work, but they should never be mandatory. And it was shoved down our throat. Normally it takes 17 years for a drug to go from origination to market. They got this thing out in a year, and they were forcing it down our throats. And so I've realized that the threats facing the United Kingdom, facing Western Europe and Western civilization more generally, obviously from the EU and organizations like the EU, but they're manifold. And they all come from this kind of liberal global order, mass migration being one example of the way they've allowed nation states to be set aside, borders being taken down. And we need to fight against all of this. We need to reinstitute the nation state. We need to reinstitute freedom of speech, because in the pursuit of propagating their extreme ideologies, the way we've been governed with net zero, open borders, our culture being set aside, the only way you can shut the people up is by shutting down speech. And so we've got to fight against the shutting down of freedom of our speech, which is the cornerstone of democracy. We've got to throw off the shackles of international law so that we can actually do what we need to for our people in this country. And fundamentally, we've got to find again equality before the law. Because having practiced all these extreme policies with mass migration and putting a protective blanket around foreign cultures and setting our own culture aside, we've effectively also undermined our criminal justice system. You know, we will throw the book at white working class people, but we will protect ethnic minorities. And even the Sentencing Council, for example, that guides courts on the kinds of sentences that they should set for particular crimes, was advising our judicial system to treat ethnic minorities more leniently than they treat white people. Why? Since when did Lady Justice have her blindfold removed? The whole point about law and its application is that it should be blind. That if you do the crime, you do the time. And so all of these things have conspired to undermine our place in Western civilization, undermine Western civilization itself. And I'm still learning more and more of what has been done, and therefore what must be reversed in order to get us back to a safe place.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.